Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I pray that today is a blessed day for you. I also pray that you have enjoyed your time with family and friends during this holiday season, the season of return uh, this year. This 2021 is where we can get back together and we can gather with one another. But this morning, I'm going to be real brief with you. Um, I am co-pastor Lisa Moffitt. Let me welcome you to the TCOP Church virtual Sunday school lesson. Our Sunday school lesson review this morning is going to be over the subject, A Just King is Born. And the scripture that we're reading is Matthew 2, verses 1 through 12. I'm using for today's lesson the International Sunday School lesson, which is typically what we use in house. So we're just going to continue with that. Again, it's Matthew 2, verses 1 through 12. And I'm going to just read a couple of scriptures from that. This light is killing me. Sorry. Okay. So Matthew 2, starting with verse 1. It says, Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east of Jerusalem. Now, verse 2 says, saying, Where is that? Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are coming to worship him. All right. So everyone knew that Jesus was going to be born. It was just a mystery as to where. So that is why the wise men followed the star or the stars to locate the birth of Jesus. And that's Herod stated that he wanted to know where Jesus was going to be born so that he could worship him. However, we know that that was not the case, actually. So, just to keep a few key points about Jesus' birth in Bethlehem, it connects him to David, the king. Okay. Also, Bethlehem is called the city of David. And I want you to read that in Luke 2, verses 4. Another important thing from study, I've noticed that David the king was born in Bethlehem also. So we see the connection here of Bethlehem, right? Uh, when Christ was born, he was born the King of Jews. And another important point is he was in the bloodline of David the king. We can further read that in Luke 3, verses 31, and also Matthew 1 and 1. So, in the days of Herod the king, Herod was a treacherous king. He was a mean and a tyrant ruler during that time. He had the characteristics of being jealous and cruel. He was known; those two things was known of him there. Um, he had a wife. He had three sons and an uncle murdered. We're talking about Herod now. Now, uh, he's wanted to know where Jesus was going to be born because I believe in, as Scripture tells us, that he felt that he was going to take Jesus out because he knew Jesus was appointed. All right. So we have to be real careful when people say, "Oh, I want to know about what you're doing. I want to come so I can see what you're going to do. Tell me more about what you're going to do." A lot of times people want to know what's going on, but that's so that they could undercut your program or your purpose. So let us be certain that when God calls you to do something, no one can uh, kill the purpose of why you're here. Okay. He knew, people in the world know, the devil knows your purpose. He knows why you're here. So he stops at nothing to get that purpose fulfilled. Okay. But as our Sunday school lesson says, a just king is born. Okay. So the wise men that's mentioned was also called the Magi. Okay. Uh, We call them magicians or study people that study the stars, but not in our terms now. Not in that sense. They were not the magicians that perform magic tricks. That's not what these magi, uh, the magi mentioned in the wise men. That's not what they did. So um, we know that Jesus' birth was not like any other birth, right? His purpose for being born, according to the wise men, was to be the king of the Jews. All right. So Herod was the sitting king at that time. So, of course, that's going to be a problem for him. Okay. So the wise men traveled a very long distance to worship him, right? Um, show respect. Worship is known as to fall or prostrate before. Um, like in the song, we say, "Oh, come, let us adore him," right? They knew he was a king, right? They traveled a long distance, and they was the first to hear um, of the birth. So uh, they they knew that this was going to be a time, I guess you could say, a time that we would never see again. Okay. So it tells us in scripture also that when King Herod heard these things, he was troubled, and all of Jerusalem was. How many know your birth may make people troubled? The birth of your ministry or the birth of something God has told you to do could make people troubled because they know they could see it in you. They could see that God's getting ready to do something amazing with this one. All right. Um, Herod had heard that the wise men came. He heard that they was being led by a star. Okay. He heard that when they saw the star, they knew that's where the babe king was going to be born. And the reason for Herod being troubled is because someone else is born a king. Okay, we some people get trouble when they do everything they can and they don't get the results. I've always said to people, you can get something that I had, but you won't get my results. All right. You can get something that I have done or had, but you won't get my results. God is just that individual. When he calls or puts a calling on you, he puts that calling for you. Your voice goes out into the earth as he called you to do. You may reach people that I may reach people you'll never reach. People may come and worship with me that no one else may can reach, and vice versa. But that's why we respect the calling of a person or a prophet or a preacher or a teacher. We respect that that is of God. So whatever the uniqueness is, God's going to put that in you, and it won't look like anybody else. All right. So Herod knew that. All right. And these people adored Jesus, right? Herod was known as a treacherous king. They did not adore him. All right. Um, so when we talk about Herod being troubled, we're talking about having an emotion of fear, right? There's some people that are troubled by your growth that's going to happen or that has happened. They can see, I did everything I could do and I didn't get that results. Did you go to God first? Did God call you to do that? All right. No one else should intimidate you. No one else's gift should intimidate you. No one else's whatever they do in the kingdom should not intimidate you. As a matter of fact, we should work to equip one another. We should sharpen one another. Okay. So being troubled, that emotion is a fleshly emotion. Um, and Herod was threatened by the birth of the baby. He was stirred up, and he was stirred up because it was such a at that particular time it was such a event that he wanted to know what is this about this babe being born. So he held a meeting with he gathered all the chief priests and the scribes together and demanded to know. of them where Christ should be born. He gathered the people that would know, right? They assembled to discuss where is he going to be born. Okay. uh, he called an assembly of church leaders, and the greatest among uh, the chief priest at that time, and he said, uh, you know the answer, tell me. Okay. At that time, and I want you to read this later, there was 24 classes of priests, and those were the chief priests. And the scribes were considered the teachers or the experts in the law. Okay. They were the learned men or the scholars. So he sought high authority to find out this information, right? Um, he wanted to know the facts concerning the birth of Jesus. How many know that when people want to uh, disturb or change something that God has on your life, they want to know about you. They want to know about you. All right. He wanted every detail. He specifically asked where Christ should be born. Okay. He also knew that he was the Messiah. How many know the people that want you to not make it? They know who you're going to be. They've seen it. They've seen God's purpose on your life. Sometimes before we even acknowledge it, they've seen it. He wanted details. Okay. He called them to the meeting and assembled them to find out. Tell me where he's going to be born. Okay. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet. All right. So, in short, uh, a just king is born. That means that we had an unjust king in Herod, right? But a just king is born. He's born. What is he born to do? I guess I should ask you that. Ask yourself, when the king was born, what was he born to do concerning me? All right. We read in our scripture last week, our Sunday, in our scripture for church, we read about Jesus, and we read about in Isaiah, and I'm just gonna go to that because I want you to go away today thinking, what was he born to do in my life? For some of you, it may be to set your family free, right? For some of you, it may be to help others, right? For some of you, it may be to lead and guide those to Christ. That's all of our mission, prayerfully, but he's born to do something for you in your life after you accept him. So Isaiah 9 verse 6 is where I want to end this. It says, for unto us a child shall be born, to us a son shall be given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. There shall be no end to the increase of his government. He shall rule again on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and righteousness from that time forward and forevermore. He was born to do something in your life. You got to ask yourself, when Jesus was born, he was a just king. What was he born to do for me? Who am I? Right? Who did he call me to be in the kingdom? I love studying scripture. I love to teach on um, enlightening Christians for what this life is really about, right? But the way that you get that is to actually study. Scripture tells us, study to show thyself approved, a workman that needed not be ashamed. Know why God called you. He may have called you to be working on the door at church, to greet those that come in. He may have called you to go out into the highways and the hedges and compel them to come. He may have called you to teach. He may have called you to mentor. He may have called you to minister. But the scripture tells us he was born, right? He was born and he was given. A son was given. Isaiah 9, I'm reading Amplified. I just really want to encourage you this morning to remember that a just king was born, and he was born for us. He was born to bear the infirmities of this world and in our life. And we should embrace that every day, not just the holiday season. All right. Bishop is going to come back up at 10. Um, I've done just a small review. I just wanted to connect with you guys this morning and go over that Sunday school review. Study those scriptures if you can, if you have time today. Give God some of your time. But Bishop will be back at 10 and we'll be back on here live. If you have any prayer requests, I want you to drop them in the chat or inbox one of our admins. I want to thank you again for joining us for this Sunday school review. A Just King is Born. Have a great day. See you at 10.